I'm Dan Carlson, one half of Two Cat Men.
I'm John Cadolf, the other half of Two Kept Men, and this is Shudder Club.
I told the story on the last video, but the way I found out about the movie we're reviewing today, well, the first time I saw the movie that we're reviewing today was when I sent my mom to rent it for me from Blockbuster on my birthday when I was 17. And she said to me, or she said to the guy behind the counter, "Excuse me, do you have brain damage?" And he didn't know what she meant, and it was quite an amusing interlude. The movie's very, very different. You want to tell us anything about it?
So, Brain Damage, which I have seen for the first time, is a story of a talking blue parasite penis.
Yeah.
Literally.
Voice of a horror movie host from the 70s. A very gentlemanly voice.
And it starts out that apparently these old folks have something going on because the guy comes home, the old man comes home, and he's got a package, and he's talking about how he bought whatever it was, and that they're much smaller than usual, and blah blah blah. And the woman goes and takes them and goes and starts he thinks she's gonna go start preparing dinner, and
it was brains. They were
it was brains.
Brains.
It was brains, and then she takes the brains, which she garnishes, to the bathroom, and what the fuck? Yeah. and then she starts screaming like a fucking banshee. And I'm like,
it helps that I didn't tell you anything about the movie, right?
Yeah, so you didn't tell me anything. You didn't tell me how annoying this woman was. And turns out there's nothing in the tub, which is the problem. And they go searching, and they fucking tear their apartment apart, knocking over things that the thing couldn't possibly be in, the
lamps and
books, and the lady spends literally 3 minutes of screen time knocking shit out of one cupboard.
Well, we find out why they're so frantic.
Yeah, and it's the fact that their
blue sentient parasite penis monster
named
Alimer,
or Elmer for short.
People call him Elmer, but it's actually not his name.
It's Alimer. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, he's gone, and that's why they're tearing their place apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so turns out, they go start going door to door, running into people's houses looking at their tubs. The one place that they don't go to is directly across the hallway.
Which is really strange because you notice that the couple has 90 million locks on their door, obviously.
Yeah.
And then if they would have just waited a week for the symptoms to start showing up in one of the neighbors, they would have noticed that the only other door in the entire building that has 100 locks on it is the very place they're supposed to be looking.
I don't know if whoever had it would have had enough time to install locks in the 10 minutes to go looking around.
So what happens is Elmer gets loose, and the second we meet the hero of the movie, we've never met him before. The second we meet him, he's already under the influence of Elmer, because Elmer, while he was sleeping attached to his neck, what this thing does is it's this very cartoonish Tex Avery looking character, but it's like a worm or a penis or some sort of phallic thing that crawls onto your neck and injects this drug into your spinal column.
No, directly onto your brain.
Oh yeah, it did go directly into the brain, didn't it? Yeah, so right at the brain stem, probably, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's hallucinogenic. It causes really wild hallucinations,
Yeah.
and it's extremely addictive because after using it twice, he's hooked.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and
And
all of this is a problem in and of itself, but it's made worse by the fact that Elmer, as part of Elmer's contract with his host,
host.
they need to go out and get him brains, and he doesn't want. The reason he left his previous owners, the screaming banshee lady, is because they were feeding him calves brains and they weren't killing people, and he didn't want none of that. He wanted human brains.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very specific.
Yes.
So there's a lot of scenes in this movie where the same thing is happening for an unbelievable amount of screen
I
time.
didn't find it repetitive.
No, what I mean is, like, for example, the lady screaming and knocking shit out of her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how long was the scene where they were knocking shit over their
I
apartment?
loved that.
Like
I
5 minutes.
It was exactly the right length of time for that. It was perfectly comedic.
And then later on, we see our main character walking away
Brian.
from a date. Brian walking away from a date for like 2 minutes of screen time, just walking.
I did something kind of interesting. I watched it on Shudder, and then I actually own the Blu-ray, so I put because the Blu-ray was the director's cut, and the version on Shudder claims to be the R-rated version. At least on Amazon Prime, it did. But I was comparing the two to see if they were different versions. They're actually both the director's cut.
Oh.
But the second time I watched it with a commentary track by the director, and he said he left that shot in where he's walking away because it was a perfect tracking shot that they accidentally got because the cameraman was actually inside of a moving car on a street with they had no licensing to film. They weren't laying any dolly track, and he said the guy's hand was so steady. He was so impressed with his shot that he just wanted to linger on it. So
yeah, and sometimes
it's a short enough movie. I think you can get away with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that where we were doing some of our little short film thingies, and we got a shot that just looked cool, but it might not have needed to be in, but we put it in just because the shot was awesome. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess I understand that.
Yeah.
So, so this film goes through the next, I guess, month or so of this guy's life and how he ruins his relationship with his girlfriend and his brother. And his brother's, this really nice guy who at first doesn't try anything with the girlfriend, but then, once his brother starts acting really crazy,
he does swoop in almost right away as soon as she starts showing any doubts.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a little smarmy.
Yeah, and then so they get it on, and he's just laying in bed listening to it.
Mm-hmm. But then Elmer, shows him a little mercy and says, "Hey, here, buddy. I don't want you to have to deal with that." So he crawls back up on his neck and gives him a little bit of juice.
Yeah. So
probably the scene that sticks with me the most is the scene where Brian tries to kick the addiction and takes Elmer to a cheap hotel and basically.
Was that even a hotel, or was it just like an abandoned place?
Whatever. He just tries to sweat it out. And, Elmer calls him out and he goes, if you really wanted to sweat this out, you wouldn't have brought me with.
That's true.
But that scene is really funny on one level and very disturbing on the next because we have Elmer singing to him and torturing him and, trying to make him beg for it. And, and the movie actually has some pretty graphic scenes where he's pulling his brains out in these hallucinations.
Yeah, that scene was like, I thought that was pretty good, I mean, and then he pulls his ear clean off.
Yes.
And then that was all hallucination.
Right.
But
there are victims. We haven't mentioned any of the victims yet.
There's this really weird guard of a junkyard. He's a junkyard guard.
Yeah.
And his first idea when he notices a sound outside is to pull his gun.
Yeah, well, that wasn't a bad idea, really.
First reaction, though. He's just like,
this is around 42nd Street in New York in the 80s, so I don't blame him. But then the next notable victim, and this is the scene that made the movie unrated and actually was not available in that version for many, many years. There's a scene where Elmer gets Brian to take him to a dance club, and he brings a lady outside, and she and he are about to get busy, and Elmer is hiding in Brian's pants. And there's a very lengthy sequence that looks really ridiculous on one hand, but also kind of disturbing on another.
It was
Where
very hentai.
very hentai scene. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the easiest way to put it. It's a comedy. It's from the
Yeah.
guy that made Basket Case, but he takes the serious stuff seriously, but he's got a lot of broad comedy in there.
Right.
I like the score. I love the music. I thought there was some beautiful music in there for this kind of movie.
Yeah.
And the visuals were pretty out there. There's a whole scene where blue water just fills his bedroom.
Yeah, I thought that was actually really well done for the type of movie that we were watching.
Yeah. So it's like some Meet the Feebles Muppet kind of thing, and then he just decides to start throwing in some 2001 Space Odyssey stuff in there.
Yeah.
So press play for me. I really liked it. I'll probably watch it many more times. I've seen it a lot of times. It's been years since I watched it, so it's probably good to take a few years away from it if you've seen it before. But yeah,
What is your camera doing?
I have it teetering on the edge of something, and I'm moving my desk apparently. So.
Oh.
Well, wait. What do you mean? Press play. It's definitely something that the Shudder crowd would enjoy, especially if you like your stuff gorier, a little offensive. It's not way over the top offensive, because it would be if it wasn't so comical. But
right.
yeah, and it's actually very colorful and visually interesting, and I just like the fact that the villain of the movie, the creature that's giving the juice, is just so cartoonish looking, and has this polite, friendly sounding voice.
And his eyes.
Yeah,
his eyes are so inviting.
Yeah, you can totally buy the fact that someone would be disarmed by the way he approaches people. Instead of, if he were to come out and be, hey, nobody would, if he was scary, nobody would engage his plan. But
he's just like, hey man, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? I got some stuff for you here.
I got what you need.
Yeah. Would you like to buy an O? So yeah, press play, definitely worth checking out.
For sure.
Two Kept Men is filmed before an audience of two assholes.